welcome to my TP video. So I've just run my TP file now, and we get this home screen with two modes, player versus player or player versus AI. Now just to look at some of the piece behavior, I'm going to go into player versus player. Nice highlight. So then, alright, so notice clicking on a piece gives it the available moves, and notice clicking on the same piece twice deselects that. Also, clicking on a piece and then clicking on an invalid piece deselects it as well. Just the interaction with the pieces, let's look at the graphics. So when we move in the north, east, southwest, notice that the last squares are different colors. This is independent of whatever piece you do this with. With the king, with the queen, but it's not the case for diagonals because in this case it still looks clean. To the possible moves if your piece is attacking something. So for example, now the king isn't attacking anything, draw circles. Now the queen, however, is attacking three different pieces. And notice how the corners of the squares have little triangles drawn. And notice that if it's a dark square, the triangles are drawn in a different color. Again, so you can distinguish between pieces you're attacking. Also, this works perfectly fine if you also have free moves and you're not just attacking. Check and checkmate real quick. Okay, so when we put a king in check, there's a little red square drawn behind him. Moreover, the only moves that are possible are moves which put the king out of check. So if there were other pieces, that would be moves blocking check, but now in this case there's only a king's, so there's only moves which the king can make. And there we go. Now notice that this position is stalemate if I make this move, which I'm hovering over, and we draw the graphics for stalemate by having a gray screen. Let me show you checkmate real quick. So here we go. Boom, similar concept. The tiles will just be redrawn a different color and will be continuing to show check with the red square. I also just want to talk about how I calculate checkmate and stalemate. So for checkmate, there's two things you need to do. You need to check whether the king is in check, which can be done through iterating through all the possible moves of the opposing color. And then you also need to check that the number of possible moves the king has is 0, which means it's stuck, and it's checkmate because it's also in check. Again, this requires a lot of iterating through all the loops, and stalemate is very similar, except to check for stalemate you need to make sure that for that given color, black or white, that for every piece the length of the possible moves they can make, or however you represent that, is 0. That basically there's no possible moves left for any piece in that color. Now I just want to show you guys pawn promotion. So say the white pawn reaches the other rank, you get screen fades and you get a choice between all of these. Now let me put the other king in check. I choose a rook. That's pawn promotion. Castling. Okay, so castling is where the rook jumps over the king, and it's represented in my possible moves by this second possible square for the queen. And in order to be able to castle, there's a couple things you need to keep track of. The king cannot have been moved, the rook cannot have been moved, and the squares that the king is moving through, this square and this square, cannot be in check. Okay, so let's castle. There we go. Now conveniently we could castle on that side too. That's a queen longside castle. Now though, let's just put one of those squares in check. 3, 2, 1. Boop, boop, boop. Here. Now we're no longer able to castle, or even go to any of these squares for that matter. You en passant real quick. which is this rule that, say the white pawn is at this rank, or the black pawn is at this rank, and the opposing pawn tries to just go to the same rank as it, jumping the square. Then en passant states that the white pawn could take that pawn as if it had just moved one square, and this can be seen here. So yeah, I'm going to talk to you about this exciting little option, player versus AI. So what I did to create the AI was I did a standard maxi mini with heuristics, and I wrote my heuristics function myself. And the maxi mini is typical maxi mini. You know, you go into recursive calls, evaluate at a certain depth, and so on. So if I just make a move, you can see it'll respond again with a knight. Let me protect that. Chose to capture. I can capture back. Alright, see, it's making natural moves that humans would make. And I just want to talk to you very quickly about the heuristics I used to get there. Okay, so first thing I did was I looked at p-square values. That is, I created a matrix with just values on every square of the board, and given what piece you are, every square has a different value. For example, knights aren't good on the edges. They're better in the center. So towards the center, knights values go up. This is considered in the p-square values function. Piece values is just a standard function which talks about how much each piece is worth. Pawn chain is a function I wrote which rewards the AI, and the one just rewards having connected pawns and diagonals, protecting one another. And then king safety pins. This function is very specific, and essentially it lowers the value of the board if pieces are pinned to your king. That means pieces can't move because otherwise your king would be in check. Reserving right to castle is a function which basically ensures that if you haven't castled and you still have the opportunity to do so, and you can block check or take the piece or something, it gives you more incentive to do so. And pawns not move for king safety just says that if your king is surrounded by pawns, it'd be better if you didn't move them as your king likes its safe position. And attacking enemy king is just a attacking function which basically adds more points if your pieces are attacking the king square and the squares around that.